Good evening. It's time for another session of $5 in the World. It is sure good to be back in the routine of doing this. I took about 3-4 weeks off before I was on last week, and I'm back again this week. And I've got a little bit different chapter for today. Yes, it still involves my dad and his stories and sayings and things, which is the whole idea of this project, is words to live by, things that he brought to the table, things that he brought to the family, to all of his friends and acquaintances, how he thought about life. And he told a lot of that through stories, recollections, and sayings that he picked up over the years, that he would use them and bring them into situations to the point where at this stage of life, my brother and I will start probably a lot of sentences with, "My dad used to say," "My dad always said," and then find that what he told us, which helped us live better, when it's repeated to others, it helps them live better, or at least reframes a situation or circumstance in a way that gives them another way to think about it. So today's chapter I called Thanks for the Memory. And what I want to talk about is how he used this amazing memory he had to serve his life. Because we know that memories are not always life-serving. We know that some people don't even bother with memories. They seem to make it up as they go along every day. And Lord Acton, the famous philosopher from the, I believe the 18th century, said he's the one who was supposedly said those who fail to remember, those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it. So there are a lot of people in this world that really don't put much stock in other people's experiences or the past or history or even really their own. They don't seem to learn from their past either. That's one kind of memory, or that people have, which is no memory at all, it seems like. And other people, their memories seem to be just like this chain, not a link to the past, but a chain to the past. It could be a trauma, it could be a loss, a disaster, an embarrassment, something that is so strong and so curated and so nurtured in their life that it becomes like a ghost over their present, or a chain that holds them back from living their fullest life. And that is, that's something that needs to be worked through. Sometimes it takes counseling or prayer or conversion or something to help us free ourselves from that kind of a bondage. My dad didn't suffer from either of those things, although he had more than his share. He had his share of losses, traumas, defeats. They didn't haunt him. He didn't close the door on the past. He didn't pretend things didn't happen. He didn't ignore things that happened. He figured out ways to frame them and bring them into the present in a way that would instruct or guide or inspire. And then he could use them to kind of set his goals for the future based on what he knew from the past. Like, I would like to do that again, or I would not like to do that again. I would like to experience something better or worse, or not worse than what's happened before, and kind of use as a reference point for his present and his future. Is that kind of what I'd call dynamic memory that I think is the most useful, the most life-serving. So with that all said, bear with me as I read these notes for the next chapter, and it's called Thanks for the Memory. My dad had a tremendous memory. One of the things that stood out for anybody who heard Dad recount an event or a moment was the consistency of the story and the clarity of the details. He told stories and recollected lessons from his past in the manner I imagine storytellers of pre-literate oral cultures did. There was an element of performance in the telling that made the impact more memorable. The reason I remember the stories so well is because he told them so well. He used memories as dynamic elements for living well in the present and for inspiration for the future he desired. Every experience he lived through became a source for a life lesson, a new idea, or a warning. He didn't collect memories to build a monument to some glory days past or as a shrine to his unique suffering. He used them for daily life. He could pull up a story or an old northern Michigan expression to provide insight into something happening in real time. So many people make one of two errors around the gift of memory. One is they don't use it. They don't learn from the past, retain knowledge, or care about what happened before them. These people are doomed to learn everything from scratch, if they learn something at all, when the solutions to their problem have already been figured out by somebody else. Wisdom comes to us by learning from others or by hard knocks experience. The former method is less painful and wasteful. People who don't draw on their own memories or the memories of others for navigating the present make life so much more difficult and so much less rich. The other mistake to use memory as a resentment enhancement, a trauma center. Disappointments, betrayals, damages, real harm can all come into any life. We can often remember these episodes in sharp detail, down to how we actually felt the moment it actually happened. We can emotionally and physiologically relive events based on our memories. It is a remarkable gift, and it can be used against ourselves if we aren't careful. If we are using our memory to anchor ourselves to the past, we make living a fulfilling life impossible. A caveat to this use of our memories is that we don't tend to take the same interest in preserving in quality and reliving positive moments and events. This clinging to the past most always centers on recollections we frame as negative, upsetting, or even crippling. Memory, like cultural memory we call history, is best directed towards learning, developing, inspiring, and progressing. I believe this explained my dad's commitment to frame his life in stories. Lessons are easier to remember in story form. They are easier to teach. They come across as less dogmatic or demanding. He also loved to read history. I know he looked for the lessons and inspiration in those accounts as well. It is important to keep in mind that relying on memory and history to live better should not mean forgetting mistakes, sins, or crimes. It does mean that it is essential to also remember how those were at some point confronted, dealt with, and resolved. I open this collection of my dad's stories with the story of Dad being asked to leave his family home. How Dad processed and related that event proves the point I'm making about his mindset. He did not frame the story with himself as a wrong party. He knew that he had been a disruptive and disrespectful member of the family. He didn't dwell on what might have been if he or his dad had handled things differently. He drew from it that whatever situation you face, good or bad, you need to take the next best action to improve the situation, whatever that may mean in the moment. He learned to ask questions, ask for help, embrace opportunity, make goals, and so many other things. He learned that he loved his family more than he knew, which made their reconciliation in later years so much richer and sweeter. We do not serve ourselves or others well by closing off the past, even the unpleasant stuff. We need to know what happened, why, and what we can learn from it. Likewise, we don't want to take good experiences and outcomes for granted and just breeze over them or ignore how they came to pass. Memory can be used to sort through our experiences and find the hope, reconcile the misalignment, heal the pain so the memory can become a lesson. Success can be celebrated for inspiration, processed for clues on how to do it again. We can inspire ourselves and others with stories of perseverance and recovery. Every saying and story my dad archived was kept because it moved him, guided him, taught him, or humbled him. He knew himself so well because he knew his story. He could see himself more clearly in how his recollections were responded to by others. Every one of us can learn to manage our memories in this fashion. Take every memory and ask, what did I learn from this? How was I inspired by this? How did I feel from this? How will this serve me and others now and in the future? It is by asking and answering questions of this nature about our thoughts and memories that we will train ourselves to put our memories to life-affirming service. So, I hope this helped. That's the notes I have for that chapter so far. Love to hear what you think of it. Love to hear how memory serves you or holds you back, or maybe a little of both. What techniques or practices do you have for sorting through your memories, sorting through your experiences, sorting through the stories you've heard over your life, and putting them into a format, framing that you can call on them and use them to guide your actions today and inspire you for a better tomorrow. I would love to hear about all of that. I would love to hear if you think this is legitimate. Do you think that's how memories work, or do you think that they are a little more independent of our will than I think they are? Love to hear about that too. Anyways, thank you as always for taking the time to listen, to comment, to share. Thank you for your support, your encouragement, your advice, and thank you for being here every week. And I look forward to coming to you again next week with a more traditional chapter with one of Dad's sayings or stories. I've got quite a few more that I want to work through before I'm ready to go to the editing process. But I just thought I'd share the method behind the reasoning or the thinking behind the thinking. And I hope it helps. I hope it gives you something to try or affirm something you're already doing, whatever it is. Put it in the chat and let me know. Thanks again. Bye for now.